Hannah Brencher is a writer, author, teacher, and TED speaker. She moved to New York City and later found herself struggling with depression. So she began writing letters as a way to cope and hid them throughout the city for people to find. These notes became the start of her global organization, More Love Letters. Now she mobilizes teams that reach people all over the globe with letters of encouragement. She also found reignited faith as she stepped into her mission, and now she uses her influence to share God's love all over the world. Please welcome Hannah Brencher.
Hannah, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about your story and how did you get into, writing these love letters to strangers?
Yeah, so it definitely was a pretty unexpected accident. I always say it's the best accident that ever happened to me. But at the time, I had just graduated from college. I was living in New York City, and I was dealing with what I didn't know was depression. So it would later become a diagnosis of depression. But at that time, I felt a lot of loneliness. I felt a lot of sadness. And I really was at a point of just trying to figure out where God was in all of this. At the time, I wasn't a believer, and I felt so surrounded by people in New York City, but at the same time, you can be surrounded by people and feel so disconnected. And so as a way of coping, I started to write letters to people that I would see on the subway or in coffee shops or wherever I would go on my commute. And I started to leave the letters behind for other people to find, because I thought, man, if I feel this lonely and sad, maybe other people feel this way too. And I don't think that I ever expected that it was going to touch so many people once I started writing about it and blogging about it online.
So you just handwrite a letter. So you would see some lonely guy or somebody that you kind of empathize with. You'd write the letter. Would you ever actually hand it to him or her, or you kind of left it, you'd kind of do it later? Or how did that work?
So I would leave it after when I was ready to leave. I was way too nervous to ever walk up to somebody and be like, Here's a letter. But I remember the first woman that I ever wrote a letter for. She had come onto the subway. She was sitting right across from me. And for some reason, I couldn't explain it. I pulled out the notebook. I started writing to her, and I got so entrenched in writing the letter that by the time that I looked up, she had actually left the train. And it was the first time I had felt in a long time that I didn't feel lonely or sad or disconnected. It felt like, okay, I need to do more of this because it makes me feel different.
There's something to say about, a lot of times you hear people say something like, one thing that helped me with, feeling depressed or anxious was actually just helping someone else. Trying to use my gifts to, it almost helps you stop spinning wheels in your head and kind of, do you feel like that's a good, I hate to call it a tip, but something that is really useful for someone that maybe they feel like they're going just through kind of a slump or something like that it seems like it was useful for you.
Absolutely. And it's something that, as somebody who continues to deal with depression, it's something that I have employed again and again and again, that anytime that I am in a slump, it does help to look outside of myself and think about somebody else. So that whether that's writing a letter to a stranger or it's writing a letter to somebody in my own life that might need to know, especially in today's world, that they're seen, they're loved, they're noticed, that they mattered. I think it's so easy to get stuck in our own head and to let our own head take us down. And so finding those ways to step outside of yourself and encourage somebody else.
You said when you were doing this, you weren't a Christian, but did you become a Christian through this process? Did it have something to do with you sort of forming a relationship with God in your life?
Yeah, no, I am 100% a Christian today because of what God did through these letters. So after I started blogging about the letters, and basically I wrote one blog post that I said, if you need a love letter for whatever reason, I will handwrite it to you and I will mail it to you. Now, I thought I was probably going to write 2 or 3 letters, one to my mom and one to the other person that read my blog at the time. But God did something crazy with that. That post ended up going viral, and I ended up spending the next 9 months writing about 400 letters to strangers.
Whoa.
And that was the time that God really showed me, listen, I have a part for you to play. I have something that I want you to do. And also for me to realize I wasn't the only person dealing with this loneliness and depression, and that there were a lot of people feeling exactly how I was feeling. And so I really feel like God used that to bring me closer to him and to ultimately give my life to him.
That's awesome. That is a huge chore. For people that don't understand, I remember when my wife and I were married and we had to write thank you letters to everybody that gave us a gift. And they were short letters, and that took forever. And it seems like your letters are really, like, it seems like you really think about them, and you really maybe pray about them and put a lot of your heart into it. So I imagine it took forever to write 400 letters.
It did take a very long time, and I won't sugarcoat it or make it look like I loved every moment of it, but I knew that I had made a promise to people, and I wanted to be the kind of person that followed through on a promise.
So you've now turned into this mega blog organization called More Love Letters. Tell us, how did that happen? So this just kind of has ballooned into this thing that you didn't have a plan and a strategy, like I'm going to write some letters, I'm going to have this thing, and it just kind of turned into this.
I tried multiple times to not have this be the thing, because it's not even that I don't even like letters that much, so much as I like what letters symbolize. I like that in a digital world, we could have something tangible to hold of one another. And that's why I think they're so important. But how it started was after I had written the final letter of that bundle of hundreds of letters, I was ready for the story to be over. I was ready, I'll tell my kids about it one day, but this is it, the end. And everybody around me was like, no, this isn't where the story ends. This is where the story begins. And so with a lot of prayer, I built a website. I set it up so that people could nominate friends and family members going through something tough. And if their nomination was chosen, people from all over the world with the power of the internet could handwrite a letter, mail it to a central location, and that person would get blessed with hundreds of letters on a day where they think probably no one is going to notice them. So that's what we do every day. We've sent out close to 500,000 love letters into the world. We honestly can't keep count anymore, but
and you don't have it's all crowdsourced, right? So you're almost like a broker. You connect the person who, I hate to make it sound that way, but you have the person that is going through something and somebody else who wants to write a letter. So there's even people watching now that if they wanted to write or receive a letter, they could do that right now, right?
Absolutely. They could go right onto the website. They could read the stories of the people that are receiving love letters this September. And they can also nominate somebody that is going through something in their own life. And so if that story is chosen, they become the recipient. They will have all the letters come to them, and they will kind of go through the letters to make sure they're a fit for their loved one, and they'll get to gift them to their loved one.
That's awesome. Well, Hannah Brencher, thank you so much. And what a great reminder, too, that one of the best ways to get out of these slumps is to focus and to help other people and to be a loving person. So we thank you so much, and thanks for your ministry. I think you're just touching so many lives, and people need what you're doing now more than ever. Hannah, thank you.
It's so wonderful to be here.
It's our privilege, really. Thank you. God bless you.
You too.